I will do a little contextualization and continuation of the journey of this session. We did 2 sessions so far. One we framed as regenerative agriculture, the true fourth agricultural revolution, and then we really discussed all the innovative leaps that are happening in agronomy, led by pioneering farmers. And then 2 weeks ago, we discussed with quite experienced people in the organic movement how the regenerative and the organic movement could be and are complementary to each other and are inoculating each other. And today we will present to you by 3 of our wonderful founding farmers the definition, that the farmers came to and worked out at the EARA Founding Farmer Conference last year in November, and to show you just how diverse the background and contexts are in, let's say, the different movements for a better agriculture in harmony with nature. We have this wonderful infographic that makes it quite present that our farmers really try to speak together, unity in diversity, for all the different movements and amazing advances we have in agriculture throughout Europe and the world, really. And tonight, our 3 farmers will present the principles to you, and then we will discuss with you all evening long. And with that, I'll give over to Matteo.
Hi, everybody, and all EARA organizers. Can you hear me well?
So, Matteo, keep speaking and let's see how it goes.
Okay, otherwise I can close the video, okay?
It's good.
Okay, so I'm Matteo Mazzola from north of Italy. I grew up in a city with a quite conventional lifestyle, but I studied high school at 14 years old, agricultural high school. It was a beautiful school because we had a farm, and with cows, animals, we had rice, paddy fields, cereals, arboriculture fields, fruit trees, and gardens, and beautiful labs, chemistry labs. So we were the second best soil lab in our region. So I really had the chance to dive into conventional agriculture, but I think it was very good for me to start from there, because I already had my let's say ecological agroecological mind, because my mother, she has been always good, like always very careful on what to buy and so on. And but basically I had all my schoolmates, my classmates were all farmers. I was the only one coming from the city, and they were all for conventional farming. So, you know, a quite thin town boy that talks about organic it wasn't very good for them. But anyway, I grew up in this quite interesting environment, and then I left after I finished high school, and I've been going around Europe and the world, at the beginning by bicycle, visiting and working in many different farms all over the world, and helping in all sorts of type of environment and latitudes and climates. So I could really learn. Going by bicycle for me has been one of the most important part of my learning journey, because the bicycle obliges you to observe not just with your eyes, but to perceive the landscape and the environment that surrounds you in all of its forms, passing through cities, industrial areas, super wild areas, and farmland, and looking at morphology and how the morphology is sort of carving the human society, and how the human society has been carving the morphology. So it's a sort of dance between these two super complex elements. And then I had the chance to go and learn with amazing teachers and consultants and farmers. And then I decided to come back to Italy. I started a farm with some friends. And basically from that farm, I met Paola, my partner, and with her and a group of people, we started our current farm, which is Azienda Agricola Iside Farm, which is based in the north of Italy, close to Lake Iseo. And there we are experimenting, producing for a CSA, for restaurants and so on. And at the same time, not at the same time, when I'm not in the farm, I'm consulting and doing education on agroecology and regenerative agriculture, mainly around Italy for different programs. There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you. What a great intro, Matteo. Fascinating. We always learn new things about each other. So we froze you there. We took away your image for a moment just so we could focus on what you were saying, but it looks like we can see you now. So it's great to also see you. Matteo, wonderful person, pioneer in Italy. And yeah, a great person to learn from. What's the name of your farm again, Matteo? Just in case people want to visit that or...
Iside.
Iside.
I-S-I-D-E. Yeah. So don't if you translate it in English, is Isis, which is the goddess, is not the revolutionary how you say movement in the Middle East.
Wonderful. And you're doing great trainings and spreading the knowledge and the love there in Italy. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So over to Nick from Britain. You're in your car. Thank you for joining us at the last moment. So please be careful with yourself. And over to you. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your journey.
Hi, thanks, Anna. And yeah, thanks the rest of Europe for having us in EARA. We really appreciate the link. Yeah, and really, I suppose there was only one good thing coming out of Brexit for us, in my opinion, and that was freeing us from the common agricultural policy. And so if I describe a little bit how I got with that mindset, I come from the far southwest of the UK, Devon, so 2.3 meters of rain a year, so we are very good at growing grass. And I grew up on a small mixed farm, and I'm lucky enough to be back on that farm. And I'm on Dartmoor, and Dartmoor is 365 square miles. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but 365 square miles of open land. It's common land, and certain farms have rights to graze this land. And historically, this would have been a woodland pasture landscape. And for the last 20 years, I've been what's called a range clearer. So on Dartmoor, on a horse, and moving livestock for the various farmers that have rights to graze this farm, this open moorland, because the military use this land for live firing exercise. And we work very long hours, and we experience all the weathers. And gradually I'd always been very interested in nature, and it's a slow kind of dawning that when you're in this vast landscape that in a sense should be the most wildest and nature rich experience, actually what I was looking at was a terribly depleted landscape, admittedly partly through industry, through the peat industry, and then partly through ranching, and really having no real control over the livestock in terms of grazing practice. And it kind of set me down a path via permaculture and through holistic management into getting very, very into grazing practice, and how we there must be a way to for grazing livestock to bring back biodiversity, because after all, nature has done this for millions of years. So what was going wrong on this landscape around me? So I took a deep dive into that stuff and got very frisky with my animals, and lots of electric fences and daily moves, or even if I was at home, like twice daily moves, and really into it. And it was phenomenal how fast nature bounces back, and how fast the animals really get into it and love it and start performing, you know, optimally and looking beautiful, and the land itself bounces back, because we'd ranched it and we'd overgrazed it for all my lifetime. So in the last kind of 15-20 years, we've seen plant species returning that I have never seen in my lifetime on that landscape. And now I'm in a situation where I have so many baby trees volunteering that it's actually very difficult to manage my livestock now, because I'm really struggling between who do I put first? Do I put this baby oak tree first, or do I put this you know, bunch of sheep, or whatever's going through at the time? So it's been really, if you need some hope, I think regenerative agriculture is really that, because land is so responsive. So I think if you're kind of on the edge about something like this, then yeah, this is truly kind of a life enhancing thing, journey to get yourself on. That's probably enough for me.
Wow, Nick, thank you so much. So interesting to hear that, and thank you for bringing in the key role of cattle and its appropriate management. That's absolutely essential in the presence of cattle, that it is well managed. Otherwise, it can be completely destructive, as you've seen. So thank you for bringing that in as well. And so we have Matteo from a more urban background who went into farming, and we have Nick coming from going all sorts of things and going back to the family farm to put all of that knowledge into practice. And we now have with us Felix from Germany, who also comes from a farming family. Tell us about your journey and your ancestry as well.
Right. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for this. It's just amazing to be part of this journey in EARA, which for me actually is kind of a new family with like-minded people that go for the same goal. It's just fun being around this crowd of people and this many farmers that go in the same direction. So as Anna said, I'm from a family farm. I'm born and raised in northern Germany on 90 hectares of playground, with a father who was super much into nature, but also very interested in producing food and taking care of animals. Also a very hardworking mother, but both of them also knew how to live and how to enjoy life instead of just being farmers. So when I got over the idea of farmers are not being super, I don't know, like the bottom of the humankind, I was thinking that for a while in school. If I got over that idea at around 16, I started searching for farms for an apprenticeship. I did that after finishing school, and there was an interesting farm with a new stable for the calves, which was quite innovative, they said. And I went on that farm, working there for a year and getting to know the conventional dairy system, which was basically growing grass on a field where like perennial pasture grows, and on the arable land growing corn, which you then harvest and in the stables put into the animals to produce milk. And like a serious closed system. And at one point I was like, well, if this is it, it's pretty boring. And for the second farm, I chose a biodynamic farm, which would, in my idea, was or would be the exact opposite of conventional farming. So I choose both extremes to have like a certain ability to paint the whole picture of farming. That was in my mind. And on that farm, a passion inflamed in me, I would say. So the idea of working with nature and in harmony with symbiosis and trying to, well, fit somehow in it as human was very fascinating. And I kept on being on this organic journey on my travels in New Zealand. I was working on a few different farms, always trying to find a way to use my potential as a farmer. It was fun, super fun. And for studying, I chose Witzenhausen, which is in the center of Germany, and I would say like a hotspot for the organic thinking movement of German-speaking young people. And at one point we had a refugee. He was about to get flown out of the country, and a lot of people were against it, and we were kind of fighting the police to prevent this guy from being thrown out of Germany. And one guy next to me, he was making very much noise. It was at night, like 4 p.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning. And I was asking him, why is he so noisy and so loud? And he said, well, I want them to make a mistake, and then we can have them for that. So make them responsible for any action they would rather not do. And I was like, this is not the way I want to transform. I want to create an impact on humanity, on our society. And I was like, well, I have a farm. I can make an impact over there. That was a time when I quit demonstrating, actually. And that was also the time when 2018 happened, a serious drought in northern Germany and beyond, where we had to start feeding our winter fodder in August. And I had to butcher 12 cows because we couldn't feed them from our land. Also, one cow died to a heat stroke. And it was like a very traumatizing situation, especially for my parents. I was studying, well, and was away with my head, but they felt like the whole thing. I was coming there in October when the rain came back, and I was roaming the fields, all brown, all dead, kind of, and I saw that the grass went green again next to the tree lines that were already existing on our pasture. That was the key situation that brought me to agroforestry. I was researching what the trees are doing to bring back the green to the grass. And through agroforestry, I hit like a very nice presentation that also got the first idea of regenerative agriculture, and that brought that into my mind. And when I was sitting in university thinking about the future of farming, especially in organic, I was like, well, it's basically not spraying pesticides and not putting mineral fertilizers, but in the end, we are harming nature a lot with it. And regeneration actually is a way. When I first heard of it, it was like answering questions that I didn't have at that moment. And I felt first time looking onto something that is like serious problem solving. So I started agroforestry on the farm when I went back in 2020. And this farm, you have to know, is like the best basis for innovative thinking that you can possibly have. My parents were very innovative by building their own creamery, so we could set up our own market for our milk and dairy products. We sell them in a circle of 15 kilometers around the farm, which gives us economic sustainability. And in like a number of cows, we milk 70 cows, which is quite small in the region, but it works because we are independent from the big market. And this is why we could put some money into planting trees, which is quite new over here. And yeah, start becoming pioneers and also that. We host many farm tours and lead people over this place to give them an insight on our philosophy about future food, and also have our own kindergarten and host different sessions for school children and stuff like that. So this is our social part of the game, and with that, the philosophy of this place, of the Eichhof, to look at those pillars of sustainability, economic, ecologic, and social health at the same time, I would say, is our way bringing this farm into the future, and this should be it for me.
Wonderful, Felix. Thank you for that. And just you can hear what a variety of stories. Everyone has their own journey and their own moments that unlock the realization of I can do things differently, and start that journey of searching for how to actually apply that different vision about life onto your specific context and your specific farm. So every one of those 65 founding farmers of EARA has their own journey and their own story, so diverse. And that wonderful phrase that inspires the farmers is unity and diversity. So there's also huge diversity in the people who are here present in the session. Thank you to the people who've already introduced yourselves in the chat. So please do that whenever you feel like you want to, and it's a good moment for you to do that. Continue to introduce yourselves. That's wonderful, because it's so great to read a little bit about your backgrounds and your stories and to know who's in the room. And so, yes, unity and diversity. And so we all came together at the castle in Germany a year ago almost now to get to know each other and see what there is as common ground amongst so many diverse farmers. And one of the things that was worked upon there is the 4 principles for stewarding regenerative agriculture. So we're going to go into those now. And I'd like to ask Nick, please, to talk to us about one of those principles, which is regeneration. On the bottom right there, you can see it. Regeneration is a life-enhancing process rather than a permanent state. Could you please talk to us about that, Nick?
Yeah, sure. So regeneration as a life-enhancing process rather than a permanent state. It's really relevant in my context, because half of our farm is on a floodplain, and I remember when I was young, it was always a disaster when we got flooded. It was always considered a disaster, and actually what has happened over the years, and certainly as we've changed the sward, the sort of robustness of our land, is get used to change and embrace change. And the kind of life enhancing bit is all life. So it's impossible for us to take actions on land and the consequences are just ripple throughout. So it puts us in this huge position of responsibility, I feel, and I think that's part of the fun. I think it's a very challenging thing to be regenerative, and that is why so few people, or how agriculture, on conventional agriculture, got where it arrived, because actually it is, we are dealing with these incredible levels of complexity, and every day virtually, I feel like those layers of complexity increase, because the variables from the day before come into play. And so it's really challenging and really exciting to be able to move your livestock or whatever it is, and for you to feel nature resonating around you. And that's really what it feels like to me, is you can actually feel a level of vibrancy from the life that you create, that has it literally resonates inside you. It has a very feel good, and I think rather than a permanent state, so we're not trying to arrive at this one place. We're trying to every day is a new day, and sure, you have goals, but no year is going to be the same. So how you behave, how you create resilience on your farm, it really allows you to roll with that much more easily. Like Felix was saying about the drought, you're buffered against that stuff, and you just kind of relax a little bit on how you're going to get to where you want to go, because it's going to surprise you. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on something that Felix said. He mentioned the word potential, and for me, we have no idea of the potential of land. I believe that I don't believe that there's anyone alive who has seen just what true abundance looks like anymore. And that for me is like a shining beacon that I'm really drawn to try and take the bit of land that I'm lucky enough to steward, and to really give it's the opportunity for it to absolutely be its best self, and have some kind of faith that will deliver financially and environmentally and socially. So yeah, that's me on that one.
Lovely, Nick. Thank you for illustrating that journey and that uniqueness of the journey, and just going towards full potential and full flourishing. That's really beautiful. I'd like to go over to Matteo next, because Matteo actually has to leave us, unfortunately, because he has the very important role next of speaking to a whole bunch of farmers who are there. Tell us about who you're going to speak to now, which is quite special, and also then lead us into the next principle, which is about exactly that, context specificity. Please, Matteo.
Yep, I'll remove the video, okay? So, well, I'll have to speak to real heroes, vineyard growers of Val di Cembra, in a very remote, unknown valley of Trentino Alto Adige region. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to leave at 8 o'clock, and I'll jump directly into the speech. So regeneration is context specific. I really like this principle because I would is applicable to an ecosystem of context. It's always important to start before reading the landscape, before reading the financial and the economical ecosystem and the social ecosystem. In my experience, the most important thing at the beginning is to understand what is the function of the individual in a specific context. Because if we don't understand what is our role, what is our function, or what are our functions and our attitudes, we will not manifest in the most efficient and most productive way for the ecology that surrounds us. So a few days ago, someone told me that I'm the Jacob Collier of regenerative agriculture in Italy, at least. I don't know if you know him. He's a musician, and he works a lot with the harmonization in music. And I really liked that. I mean, he told me, this person told me, because my hairs are always standing up like Jacob Collier. But I really like it because I like to work with harmonization of systems. So I really passed lots of time to understand what was my attitude, what and where I could be as much as productive as and unique as every single species in a system. A moss knows what the moss has to do. A larch knows what has to do. An oak, a cow, a snake. All of the species inside a system, they know what is their attitude and their role, and they work on that. And then they connect to the rest of the system once they are doing their job. So first of all, it's very important to understand the individual context. And then once you did that, for me, it's extremely important to dive into senses, into perception, into intuition, and to use the rationality that we learn via school and books and courses and so on, to blend all of those tools that we have to perceive, understand, interact with the reality that surrounds us, to again use our function and attitude in the most productive way possible. So the context is everything, because very often we planted very different experimental agroforestry system, for example, and people normally tend, not everybody, but many people tend to copy them and to tell us, oh, we want also to plant Paulownia rose, and we want to plant that tree or that plant, and those consortiums. And I always say, don't do the same, don't copy us. Try to understand, simplify if it's too complex at the beginning, simplify your system, but understand and try to connect with the species which are present, which are present to your specific context. Understand, perceive, and work to understand your specific climate, your specific meteorology, the weather, the society that surrounds you. Try to understand where that society comes from, why the single individuals in that area, they would be maybe very shy or very aggressive or very open. in the previous farm where I was working in Veneto region, it was from social point of view, it was a dream. It was perfect. Amazing customers, amazing neighbors, amazing society around. Like they really were, how to say in English, they were very kind to each other. Where I am now is a completely different context. So I had to apply completely different social strategies with my neighbors. At the beginning, we had problems, and I completely had to change myself in order to be compatible with the new ecology, with the new social ecology. So it doesn't matter if we are talking about botany, so plants, about animal husbandry, so animal breeds or species, or ways that we can adopt to sell our produce in all the ways possible. It doesn't matter the ecosystem we are talking about. The most important thing is not to buy systems from outside. We are used to, oh, I need this. I go on the internet and I buy and whatever I need, and in one day I have it. But to re-merge, to get in contact with the context that we choose or we were chosen to live in is extremely important, to go through processes which harmonize our presence inside the system. This sounds maybe a little bit hippie or a little bit like a tree hugger style of being in a landscape and an ecosystem, but really is a very long time that I consult farmers and I go around Italy and I go around Europe, and I see that most of the time the real limiting factor is that the farmer doesn't know who he is or who she is, and this reflects on the community, being it the family or the farming community or the customers or the neighbors and so on. This for me is extremely important because I had a lot of time to think about myself when I was biking, and I also did many experiences where I was with myself. And I see that, again, I repeat myself, in order to reach that functional productivity, which is typical of nature, we need to understand who we are as an individual and as a collective species.
So inspiring, Matteo. You have a wonderful way with words, and it's not even your mother tongue. So thank you. That leads beautifully into the regenerationist systemic principle. Talk to us about that.
Well, is again connected to what I was saying before, and also connected to this. Basically, anything I do, it doesn't come from me. Basically, my journey, my process is to embrace as much as I can the language and the codes and the decodification of the non-living world, as the microorganisms started 4.5 billion years ago to decodify, to find the language to speak with the non-living world. And then if we understand what is our role in the ecosystem, then basically when we are speaking about what is systemic, basically is just what surrounds us and what we are not doing as a human species most of the time. So systemic is, it can be seen as with a lens, as a micro systemic, as a meso systemic, or as a macro systemic, going until the behavior of the matter and the energy in the universe. But staying on the planet Earth and in our context, systemics, from my point of view, is our capacity of reading and observing and studying and designing and then implementing systems which are able to which are based on symbiosis, on the efficient use of the matter. So they are trying to escape from entropy and going towards syntropy, if I can use this term, or the magnification and maximization of the use of resources, energy, space, and time. So once we choose the right crops, the right plant species, the right animal species, and we enhance the microbial community that is present through correct strategies and processes, this will allow us automatically to increase the potential, the productive potential of the system. And it's amazing because if we work, for example, properly with animals, we will see that they will activate the system, and new insects, more insects will come to deal with the parasites, to use the animal as their feeding source, or their dung, or the tilled soil, slightly tilled soil, or the trampled material that it will be decomposed. And then the insects will attract birds, and the birds will attract predators, and the birds and the predators will bring new plant matter, new genetics, new elements of a system that it becomes more and more systemic and less how to say, monocultural. So for me, systemic is the capacity of the system of weaving and interweaving all the elements, living and non-living, present in the system. But then we can also apply it to a financial or economical observation and reading of the economical context, which I like to not decide the economy of my farm and the how to say the economics of our farm, but I like to apply natural principles, systemic principles, also to economy. I think out there, and I finish and I have to go, sorry about that. I think by observing the natural behavior of forests, of pastures, of animal behaviors, and so on, we already have all the tools, all the principles, all the ideas that we need to then stimulate. I won't say create systemic systems, but to stimulate systemic systems that can work with functional complexity when necessary, or functional simplicity when necessary. For sure, and here I close, and the Greeks have been talking a lot about this. When there is functional beauty, we understand that we are on the right track. Thanks to everybody, and sorry I have to go.
Thank you so much, Matteo. Best of luck with all those hero farmers you're going to be with tonight. May you inspire them and may they inspire you. That's how we nurture each other, from hearing each other's stories and learning from each other. Thank you so much, Matteo. Yeah, great to have you. And so on to the fourth principle. Felix, back to you to please talk to us about regeneration as an outcome-oriented principle.
Thank you so much, Anna. And thank you, Nick and Matteo, to build up our principles so I can finish with our social, ecological, and economic health principle. I would say, and I would add to Matteo's, which I really liked, to his systemic system. So I think we always have to think about the farmer or the people, the humans inside our economic systems, which provide us with food. So when we look on landscapes or at ecosystems, where are we? Where are we observing and intervening with nature, or are we observing and trying to steward? Steward is a very big word in EARA. I really like a lot. And with this stewardship of our ecosystems, I would say you need a certain mindset to set regeneration at the top of the goals on your impact. So imagine that, having a certain mindset where regeneration of, well, everything actually is the highest goal. There wouldn't be greenwashing, for example. Just wouldn't exist. Imagine that. And this is what brings me to this principle of seeing together social, ecological, and economic health, which is a philosophy on the farm here as well. You have to have in mind every single one of them. It cannot be that your economic health, that you're making a lot of money because on the social basis, some children are weaving the clothes in Bangladesh or whatever. You know what I mean? It cannot be that you pay your workers a lot of money and you yourself do a lot of money on, I don't know, buying someone's rubbish and putting it in some river to dump it, which would be a massive catastrophe on ecological health. So a company, a person, a whatever organization can just be truly sustainable and beyond regenerative if all three pillars of sustainability are addressed in a serious way. And we have this health part in there. Think about health. What is health? When I think about our ecosystems and about farming, I most often have in mind our soil. And I have the big vision that we solve this problem of treating our soil so it regenerates itself and it actually builds up. You can grow soil. It works. It does happen. It should not disappear because we grow food on it. If we can grow soil and regenerate it to a certain health standard, we don't need any pesticides or any mineral fertilizers or anything to put on top to cure a plant that wouldn't exist without it. This is my great vision, like having plants that are truly healthy because of soil that provides it. And there was one guy, very inspiring. He said, if we consume those plants, the fruits of healthy plants, we have a different temperature feeling, and we can lower our heatings in the houses of, for example, 2 degrees. Imagine on the impact on energy we would not use. So it has a huge impact to create health. And with growing soil, we capture carbon. We grow healthy plants that nurture us and our animals. So I would say, huge problems that we have in society would be solved within just that. Happy humans don't think about fighting each other. Another crisis would be solved with just nurturing us good food and regenerated ecosystems. At some point, we have to measure, that's for sure. Technology is getting better in that, and there's ways of us farmers do not have to run on the fields to measure our soil health or biodiversity levels or whatever animal health to show that our system is actually better as the neighbors, or is a certain standard that we need to get paid subsidies, for example. At the moment, we see at a system that gives money for certain, well, practices that we don't really know what impact they have. We have a clue, but farming is too complex to wrap it inside these borders of having few practices that are paid. Because, I don't know, some scientists said so, and some politicians have been impacted by that. So measuring regeneration, and with that becoming better at it because we know certain practices make sense at a paleoclimatic region, I believe is the future. And with that, we will get social, ecological, economic health and be healthy as humanity. What about that?
Thank you so much for that, Felix. Beautifully put. And yes, some say that one of the most revolutionary things we can do nowadays is to grow healthy food and eat healthy food, because that allows us to flourish as human beings. And as you say, express our potential and not think about killing each other or fighting, but actually about developing and enjoying that potential in our lives and be happy, which is what every human being ultimately desires. So that leads us really nicely into, I'd like to ask Simon to explain to us how EARA is bringing these principles, what EARA is doing to take these principles into something that can be supported and stimulated by public policy, which at the end of the day regulates so many things and dictates where the funding goes. So what is EARA doing for that, to take these principles into practice in that way, through policy and through funding? And in the meantime, while Simon explains this, I'd like to invite all of you to think of what questions you would have in the last part of our session for our farmers, for the EARA team, for, make the most of having this little time together to ask some questions. So while you think about the questions you would like to put out there, Simon, please lead us into what is actually EARA doing about this.
Thank you so much, Anna. Yes, I'll tell you a little bit how we are making this definition actionable, both in the public and in the private sphere. So I'll start by the public sphere, where already Felix went into. We are not writing here social, ecological, and economic practices, but outcome-oriented. And we are published a big policy paper on how we could develop and design the common agricultural policy from overcoming all the negative externalities, second-order effects we have on trying to incentivize the agroecological transition of farming through practices. As Felix said, in one paleoclimatic context, in another economic context, those practices always play out differently. Whereas on the outcomes, we can align and give the trust to the farmers who are the experts of their context to develop the fastest way possible to achieve these holistic health. We are doing also currently the epistemic and epistemological task of testing our proposal. We're doing the possibly largest study on regenerative agriculture in the world, with more than 150 of the most pioneering European farmers from all agroecological contexts, from all production type contexts, to see how did their production and their ecosystem services and their service to a life-enhancing journey developed over the last 3 years in comparison to the farmers in the pedoclimatic context, in their region, in our nations, and in Europe as a whole. And therewith, we want to build an advocacy alliance, multi-sectoral, with many people from all the different pioneers in the regenerative movement we have, who are not farmers, but work, for example, for processors and so forth, to really design a public policy from farmers, for farmers, and for all our societal and natural health. We believe in Europe, we currently spend over 50 billion globally as a society. We spend more than 870 billion annually to subsidize farmers to farm in a way that segregates us from nature, destroys nature and ourselves. And we have that money to turn it around and give the stewarding back to the farmers. So there we are working with very simple outcome-based indicators that then can remunerate context-specifically the journey of the farmers and incentivize their journey, while giving them full freedom and agency to learn and act. In the private sector, we are starting by applying these principles in a way that we can assess all the certification methodologies and claims on regeneration out there through the farmer lens. So is this new certification or claim on a regenerative product or a regenerative financial product or food product context specific? Does it speak to all the 3 types of health? Is it, as Felix said, at some point it needs to be measured in a spatial and temporal resolution that's robust enough for supplying the proof? And lastly, really, is the whole design of the methodology in a way that it is of agronomic value to the farmer? Because what farmers cannot need is more bureaucracy, more paperwork. That doesn't help them to learn how to better and faster farm in harmony with nature. And I, of course, invite everyone here, if you have amazing farmers, I mean, I saw in the chat also from Tuscany, I think, some amazing farm. If you want to participate or know a neighbor who should participate, so we can really show what farmers are already able to do, please reach out. Thank you for putting in the chat, Anna, our CAP paper. And I hope you bear with us for a few more weeks and months until we prepare the report in kind of benchmarking the regeneration certifications out there against or with the definition of our founding farmers.